Hello everyone, this is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of Eye of the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful Rabbit Hole, Lauren Frey, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. Well, as of today, Phil Spencer has essentially conceded. He has admitted that the Xbox brand is dead, that they failed to succeed during the last generation with the Xbox One, and now that the company is flailing about, trying to rebuild their brand, trying to do something in order to keep the Xbox brand viable. And he has admitted this. This is on record from the head of a major console corporation. They have lost the console war. Xbox has officially come out here and said that we can't compete with Nintendo, we can't compete with PlayStation, we have to do something different, right? And in context, he was talking about how Redfall has failed and all the situation in regards to that. But I really want you to listen to what this guy is saying. Listen to what he's talking about. Isn't it sound very familiar? Isn't this the exact same thing that Cody Lee, the author of highly successful books like Eye of the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful, and Lauren Frey, has been saying on this channel for the past 10 years? I've been saying this since before the PS4 came out, right? It feels like these other non-Nintendo brands cannot compete. And I think Xbox, more so than PlayStation, really got the short end of the stick here, because the Xbox One was a disaster right out of the gate, right? The Xbox 360 was the only period of time that Xbox had any viable was in any way viably competitive against the PlayStation 3, and because Sony screwed up that generation so badly, right? The PS3 was a complete disaster. But looking back on 2013, looking up to that build up to the Xbox One release, and looking up to everything that's happened in the past decade, there is no denying that Xbox has failed, right? The Xbox brand is on the way out. Microsoft is getting ready to pull the plug, and it seems like Phil Spencer is just trying to transition Xbox from a console manufacturing brand to just a giant conglomerate that controls all of these big third-party studios. That seems to be what we're seeing. And good riddance, honestly. I've gone on record about this several times, but Xbox has been a cancer on gaming ever since its introduction in 2001. It was the Xbox that brought about DLC and online play, paid online. It was the one that normalized a lot of the modern day marketing tactics about pushing for mature games for mature gamers. It was Xbox that pushed a lot of that and made it mainstream, and Sony just had to do the same thing. And so these two companies have just been going back and forth and who is more awful for the past 20 years now. And it finally seems that Xbox is in the position where it really wants to admit that yeah, they're done. They're completely unable to compete. They're never going to be able to take off. They're never going to make Xbox viable, especially outside of America. There's too much competition from too many different people. Too many people are playing on mobile, on PC, on Nintendo. The Xbox's days of being being able to compete due to being a multimedia machine, they're over. That's not a thing that anyone is picking up consoles anymore for, right? What exactly are people buying Xboxes and PlayStation 5s for? At this point, it really does come off as if it's just pure nostalgia and brand recognition. There is no reason to pick up any of these products. And Phil Spencer has to be aware of this. He has to be aware that the Xbox brand is not going to recover. They're never going to establish any iconic brand franchises. They dropped the ball with everything they had 20 years ago. Maybe if they kept going with Ninja Gaiden, if they got Itagaki, actually formed a team with him, putting out new Dead or Alive games, putting out Ninja Gaiden games, making Devil's Third a big Xbox exclusive that could compete with COD, right? Taking this talent and really building something with it. They could have gone up against PlayStation, but they didn't. Every single time they opted for the cheap, easy route of just throwing all the money at graphics and marketing. And what happened? In 2013, when graphics started stagnating, suddenly they stopped seeing massive returns. Suddenly they stopped seeing massive just fan interest and hype. Suddenly, everybody just lost enthusiasm. And it is entirely because of their own decisions. They cannot just keep doing this. And Phil Spencer is aware of it, and it seems like we are in that early stage where Xbox is absolutely going to have to bow out of the hardware space. And it's been a long time coming. It's been something that like I've wanted since honestly even before I was on the internet. This is something I've been wanting since 2005. Ever since like people started telling me that like I was stupid for enjoying Nintendo and their games, right? Like, oh man, like don't you know that real gamers play Halo? It was like Halo in a lot of ways is like the first video game franchise I ever hated. And it had nothing to do with the IP itself, just the behavior of the audience, just condemning me, like, just attacking everything else that wasn't it, because Halo is just so much superior. It was a complete joke even then. And what happened? Halo's dead, Bungie's dead, Microsoft is dead, and they're big new games, like the games that are supposed to be like the new big AAA titles, like stuff like Starfield. Phil Spencer even said this in the interview. He confirmed this, that like even if Starfield is considered the greatest game of all time, an 11 out of 10 game, it's not going to save the brand. Okay, like they're at the point where nothing could save the hardware space. Like, Halo put Xbox on the map, but there was never anything that like really evolved the brand past that. Like all the brand is at this point is just like the console that Americans use to have the superior online service in like what 2004 to 2013, around the time that like everyone else started catching up. Like when have you heard anyone like brag about Xbox Live in the past decade? Like everyone else has the same exact service with the same exact features with the same exact like online play. So Xbox Live is not the big draw that it used to be, and Xbox Game Pass is nowhere near able to replace it. Like Game Pass isn't in and of itself a failure, right? Nobody really cares about Game Pass, but it is. It's interesting seeing this collapse, seeing the situation just unfold, because we really are reaching the end. I think there's going to be a handful of future titles that come out. Starfield is on the way, but I do think we are in the phase where it's safe to say that we might not get a new Xbox. This might be it for them. They might just put their efforts into like supporting Nintendo going forward. And I, as a gamer, am very excited to see this happen.